Okay, it's Julius here, finally back with new tutorial. And before I start this tutorial, I want to take a moment and really thank each and every one of you for supporting me, because now I have my new laptop here in front of me that I got because of you guys have bought my presets and prints and things like that. And it's crazy to think that I started 8 months ago and I already have over 40,000 people here supporting me, and the messages I receive on a daily basis, they give me so much motivation more to do all of these things. And now I want to give something back to you and make these tutorials more often. And yeah, let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so now I have opened all of our stock images here in Photoshop. We are only going to use 3 images now. So the things we are going to do is changing the sky, adding the skater here, and then making the whole image from day to night. So the first thing we have to do, of course, is to get these objects out of their original images. So I'm going to start off by zooming in. I press Alt and then I zoom in with my mouse scroll. And I'm going to cut this woman out with pen tool. So here is the pen tool, and I will speed up all of these cutting parts because I really think that you don't want to see me cutting images off for 10 minutes straight. So I will start now and we'll be back soon. Okay, so now I have gone through the outlines, and then I will click with right mouse button and then I will make a selection and put the feather radius to 1. Then I'm Ctrl C, Ctrl V, so we get this layer duplicated. So now we have only our girl here. Then we're going to move this skating girl to our image here. So I just grab it here and then move it to here. Okay, now we have our girl, and you can click Ctrl T and then you can move it and resize it like this, and then we have our skater there. Okay, so our first element is now in. Okay, so now we are going to move into the sky, and I duplicated this layer here just in case if something goes wrong. I prefer having a backup layer. So we are going to click this quick selection tool here, and we are going to make our brush larger. We're going to go here, and then we start to select the sky. And this is why I don't like to use this quick selection tool a lot, because it doesn't do a perfect job, so you have to fix it a lot. But when you have a strong line like this, it should be easy to fix it. And now I clicked Alt, so that plus changes to minus, and then I can decrease the selection here. And now I'm just going over these outlines and making sure almost every line goes perfectly here. The more you spend time selecting, the better the outcome will always be. And I usually spend a lot of time cutting images out of stock images. So there, and then that mountain top and those. Okay, so that's fairly good. Then we're going to invert the selection by pressing Ctrl Shift I, and now it changed the selection here. And then I'm going to click here to put a layer mask on it. And always remember that with layer mask, black is the color that conceals things, and then white is the color that reveals things. So if I take this brush here and make it bigger and push black here, so flow is too small. So now, as you can see, black removes, and then if I take this white and brush here, white reveals. Okay, so now we are going to go to our sky and move the sky here. And you're going to put this layer under this, and then you're going to move it to its place. Okay, so somewhere there. And now we have all of our elements here, and then we start blending. So that was the composing part, and then comes the part that most of the people don't get that well. So let's get into the blending. Okay, and then we get to the blending. So as you can see, I have like cropped this image a bit. So just crop it how you like. I thought that it was too high. It was like this in the beginning, so that doesn't fit even on Instagram. So always try to crop your images 4:5. So that's the basic like image size for Instagram. So first we are going to take this layer, and I'm clicking pressing Ctrl and then clicking here on the layer mask, and now it selects the outlines, and then we're going to click here on the curves. So this is the main thing that you have to use for blending images, and I'm going to show you now one trick that I always use. So for blending, like we have want to make this darker. So here in the left we have our blacks. When we increase these, it will open the blacks a bit, and we have our highlights here, and then we have our midtones here. And what we're going to do is take this down a lot, like so much over here, and then we're going to take the highlights down a bit, because we have a night image and our highlights can't be that strong. So highlights down, and then we bring this down a bit more. Okay, so now we have a dark background, and maybe we can pull this up even a bit more. Like that. Okay, so there's the curve that I usually use for blending. And that's the difference already. As you can see, it's huge. And then we're going to move on to our girl. And here the same thing. Ctrl, click here, select it, then curves, highlights down, blacks up, and then this midtones down. Okay, and that blends in pretty well. Then what we're going to do is change the colors of the background a bit. So we're going to click here and select it again, and then we click to hue and saturation. And here we have to take the saturation down, because during night these colors can be this saturated. So saturation down, then the lightness down to -11, and then we leave it like this. Okay, so now we have decreased our colors on the background. And then one important thing that you have to do is to blur objects. So I select this here, then I have our my blur tool here, and as you can see, these outlines are very sharp, so it doesn't look realistic at all. So I'm going to make this a bit bigger, then I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to blur these edges a bit. Maybe put the strength to 50, and then I'm just going to blur the outlines. This doesn't do like much of a difference, but when you have done it all around, it will look a lot better, trust me. So here, now that we have it only on this layer, we might have to blur that layer too, because now it creates, as you can see, this black outline here that comes from this curves layer. So now we just fast blur these. This skateboard can be blurred a lot. And then we can blur that curves totally around. Okay, so now we have blurred our girl. And then we're going to take the saturation of the girl down a bit too. So select it again, then saturation. And now what we want to do is select her legs. So grab this hand here and click here, and now it detects the color here, it's reds. And then we take the saturation of the reds down a bit, and then the lightness down also. Okay, so that takes some of the saturation down from her legs. Then the next thing for our blending is burn and dodge. So here is burn tool, and what we have to do with this is burn these highlights here. So we go here and then we choose highlights. So this tool detects all of these. For example, if I take the shadows and push here, it will make the shadows darker, but if I push here, it won't make the highlights darker, as you can see. So we take the highlights, and now we push here and it takes the highlights down, as you can see. So this is one of the main tools also for blending, because you can like change the whole lighting of an object. And I think this is too bright, so I take the highlights down from there too, then from here, and from her hair too. Okay, and as you can see now, that looks a lot better already. Then we're going to blur the mountain also. So here, then the blur tool, and we're going to blur the outlines. Select this here and then blur. So you can first blur the layer mask like this, and then the actual image. And then just to be sure that it will get blurred properly, you can blur these adjustment layers too. Okay, now we have blurred our mountain, and that looks way too bright, so I'm going here, take the burn tool again, select highlights, put the exposure to 25, and then take the highlights off from there. And Ctrl Z if you want to take a step back. Okay, so now we have our mountain lights decreased. Then we're going to go back to this hue and saturation layer and select that color here and take the saturation down from that and from that too. So let's take almost all of the color out of this. Then we're going to put a curve layer on top of everything. So now we have blended each object on their own, and then we have to blend everything together with putting a curves on top of everything. So now we're going to take these blacks up a bit again, and then take the midtones down, and now we're going to increase the highlights, so make like an S-shaped curve. This is also called a contrast curve. So now it blends even better everything together, and then we're going to start coloring this whole image. So now it's kinda gray and looks weird. So how to color it? Select first the mountains, then take the color balance tool here, and I want to make a very like blue vibe here, so I'm going to increase the blues here a lot and then put a hint of cyan in it too. Okay, so as you can see now that blends in very well with the sky, so you have to understand colors a bit here. Then you can increase the shadows and maybe put a hint of warm to the shadows. Not too much, but just a little. -2 is enough here. Then we take the girl and color balance it too. So blue, then a hint of cyan. And that gives the girl a change of color too. And you want to make some shadows here, so you can make a new layer on top of that girl, I mean under that girl, and then take the brush, then take the black color and put the flow down to 5, and then you're going to create shadows. So now you have to understand something about shadows. So of course when the light is coming here and it's night, the shadows can't be that strong, but of course under that skateboard the light is darker. So we're going to make our brush about this size and then the hardness to 0, and then we just start to brush here. So under the wheels, of course, and then under the skateboard. And then maybe put a bit of shadow here too. And now you can see that the skateboard looks a lot more realistic here when the ground is darker. And now we just do some lighting changes. So we make an exposure adjustment here and we increase the exposure. Okay. And then we put a bit of gamma in it. It makes some contrast there. Okay. And we want to make this only visible to the middle. So we are going to do like kind of a windjet effect here. So take the pocket tool and then change the color to black. You can click X for black. And then you are going to remove the whole selection, and then you're going to take the brush and put it to white. Remember, white reveals. And then put the flow back to like 80, and then make your brush big and soft, and then push here. So now it makes the middle brighter, as you can see, and it leaves the outlines here like this. And then what I want to do is make a vignette here, and I prefer making the vignette with brush. So I create a new layer here, then I put the flow down to like 6, and then I just make a small vignette. So I brush here, black, here, that's maybe a bit too much, then here. So just go slightly around with this brush, and that looks good. Okay, and also that looks good. So now we have 3 final things. As you can see, the difference is huge. Everything blends together well. And now we're just going to do folders for each of these. So select all of the girl layers, click here to make a folder, name it girl, then take here these, and then make a folder, mountains, and then make a folder here and put the sky in and name this to sky. Okay, so I want to change the color of the sky, and that is also done with hue and saturation. So I just click here, then I choose the color, and then I change the color a bit more to cyan. And these are really up to you how you want to make them, but yeah, so it's just color grading, so it's up to you how you want to do it. I prefer cyans more than blues. So then I'm going to increase the saturation also a bit and take this maybe a bit down. And as you can see now, that blends in perfectly with the mountains and with the girl. And then what I usually like to do is make a bit of fog in my image. So how we can do this is to make a new folder here called fog, and we are going to make a new layer here, and then we're going to filter, render, clouds, and this creates this strange looking thing for us, and we are going to make fog out of this. So Ctrl T, then select perspective here and zoom out and grab the right or left corner and just drag it a lot to the right or left. Then you zoom back in and you choose here distort, and then you distort the whole thing down. So now it creates this a layer of fog there. Then we're going to click there and put the blending mode to screen. So screen makes it like that, and then put a layer mask on the layer and make it totally black again, so it removes all of the fog there. Then you're going to take a brush, select white, and then the flow to 1, and then you just start to gradually bring the smoke back here, I mean the mist. Just like this. And now we have, then you can change and take some of it off if it's too much in your opinion. And now we have fog here, as you can see. So that looks pretty nice. Then for the final here we can say light thing. Okay, and our final thing we are going to do here is a color balance layer in top of everything. So I want to make this really blue, so a bit of blues, a bit of cyans, then go to the highlights and maybe put some a bit of warmth, and then blues a bit more. Now our image looks really blue, and I like that. And one cool thing you can do if you want to add some lighting more is go to the sky layer, then create a new layer here, then make a big brush, make this blending mode to overlay, and then make sure you have white brush here, and then push a bit of light coming from behind the mountains. Let's see how this looks on normal. Okay, so definitely keep it on overlay. And now we have some light coming there, and I think that looks good. Then we just check one more time that we have everything done well. We could like spend 20 more minutes on this girl to make it look absolutely perfect, but I think it's not necessary here, because the idea is just that you understand how to blend. So let's just look now what we have done. So the lighting, then the girl, we started with the curves, then we took some of the saturation of her legs off, and then we made the blue color balance there, and then we made also the shadows under the skateboard. Then with the mountain, same thing, curves, hue and saturation, took a lot of the saturation down, and then also the color balance to blue. Then the sky, we made the light, and then changed the saturation. So as you can see, this blending is really important, just to make everything look more realistic. And most of you leave the image to this part, and you leave the whole blending out. So remember to always blend everything. So let's click these on again, like this. And that's basically everything for the blending. Okay, and I remember just one more thing that we can do. You just make a new layer on top of everything, then select the brush, put the color to white, then the flow to 10% or something, yeah, 10%, then blending mode to overlay, then make a big brush and brush once here in the middle so it creates some nice smooth light there, and then with the smaller brush once again. So that's our final lighting, and that's the difference with my lighting blending. Some people prefer this look better, but this is just my personal lighting folder that I usually do. So the curves is everything for me. Maybe if you want to decrease some of the soft feel here in the middle, you can make a big brush and then black and brush here a bit, so that brings some of this is like before and now after, so that brings some more contrast back to the middle. Okay, so now we are done with this image. I hope you learned a lot of new things from it. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.